Hello, everybody. Welcome. I know I kind of took a really quick sabbatical there from the podcast, and I haven't done that in a few years. I just really needed to take the space, and I'll be doing a whole nother episode on this topic or just sharing with you a little bit more about why and what's been going on with that. But I am super excited to introduce you to this episode because we're going to be talking about AI. I have been using it in some way, shape, or form to help me get some time back. And it is such a huge resource for me when it comes to dealing with brain fog and just not having all of the energy in the world to do some of the things I used to do with ease. And also, AI has been one of my favorite tools, more specifically in the creating and managing of my podcast. I cannot tell you how much time I save having some of these tools. But in this episode, we're going to be talking with one of our guests that we've had on the show before. So I'll leave a little sneak peek for you to listen to that in a second here. But we're going to talk about how to use AI authentically. We're going to talk about the things you need to put in place to make AI easy for you so that it sounds like you. Just some of the basic things you need to know about AI, regardless of where you're hearing it from. Just some things that helps you to keep focused on what's working, what's not working, as well as just some rules to kind of have in the back of your mind that helps guide your process in using this amazing tool. And I'm doing this in a conversation with a really great guest. So all I have to say, can't wait for you to jump in. Here's a little sneak peek and stay tuned for the rest of the episode.
It is kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, when it comes to our brand's authenticity, if it's important to you, then make it important to you. And in the age of AI, as more and more people are using these tools and it's becoming recognizable, like your brand authenticity is more important than ever. And it's going to allow you to stand out even more so, right?
Welcome to Business with Chronic Illness, the globally ranked podcast for women living with chronic illness who want to start and grow a business online. I'm your host, Nikita Williams, and I went from living a normal life to all of a sudden being in constant pain with no answers to being diagnosed with multiple chronic illnesses and trying to make a livable income. I faced the challenge of adapting traditional business advice to fit my unique circumstances with chronic illness, feeling frustrated and more burned out than I already was while managing my chronic illness, to becoming an award-winning coach with a flexible, sustainable online coaching business. I found the surprisingly simple steps to starting and growing a profitable business without compromising my health or my peace. Since then, I've helped dozens of women just like you learn how to do the same. If you're ready to create a thriving business that aligns with your lifestyle and well-being, you're in the right place. Together, we're shifting the narrative of what's possible for women with chronic illness and how we make a living. This is Business with Chronic Illness. I'm so excited to have Kinsey on the show again. If you all are OGs of the Crafted to Thrive community, you already know that Kinsey has been on here and a part of my journey, just as having an awesome business bestie, if you will, in my community, in my corner. And I'm just so excited to have her on. It's been forever since we've had her on the show, or even on Instagram. We used to do lives together and everything. But she has gotten some really cool things in relation to AI. And y'all know I kind of love AI, but I also kind of am not like an expert in it. And Kinsey has definitely kind of stepped into that role. And I thought, who better to have on the show to talk about it? So welcome, Kinsey. Welcome back.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me back, Nikita. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so excited. One of the biggest things before we get into the whole conversation, some of the things that I want to say first about AI is that a lot of people, especially my chronic illness warriors, know a couple of things. They know it saves some time, or it will at least, and they know it's something they can't avoid. It's kind of like when traditional photography transitioned more into digital photography. You weren't going to run away from that being the fact. It's here. However, there's questions. And so I know there's a lot of questions that people have about how can it be authentic? How can it actually save you time? Is it worth your time? And all of that jazz. And we're going to answer some of those questions. But before we do, what has been up, girl? What has been up?
Oh, so many things, lady. I'm so glad you asked. Yeah, I know. Basically, since we last talked, and your OG listeners probably know me as Kinsey from Feel Good Social. And, it's so funny. I feel like over the years, a lot of things change for your brand. You make lots of different pivots and all that different stuff. And there's still like so many core things that just stay the same, right? And especially if you can really get to the authentic brand that you are trying to build from the get-go and just be like, okay, these are my values. This is why I'm showing up, all that stuff, right? So for Feel Good Social, a lot has changed in the back end, what we offer and how, kind of how we help people. And at the same time, we just still are solid in that foundation of just helping down to earth entrepreneurs show up online authentically without wasting your time or selling your soul, right? That's like the core. Oh, I just like spilled my coffee on me. This is why I can't hold my coffee and talk at the same time, because I talk with my hands. Okay. So anyway, yeah. So that's still what we do, with Feel Good Social and whatnot. We really focus on the core messaging for your brand that feels aligned with you, how to show up with confidence, how to sell in a way that's not icky or sleazy, and also, how to show up on Instagram and all the places without wasting your time in a way that works for you, right? So that is kind of how Feel Good Social is aligned. And honestly, too, that is what we are now bringing into our new sister brand, Authentic AI, right? So, about a year ago, I was first starting to hear about the AI buzz, and I'm like, what are all these things? And I'll be honest with you, my first thought was, this sucks. Isn't the internet fake enough as it already is? What's this going to do to our creativity and our critical thinking skills? I was like, our robot's going to take over the world. That sort of stuff.
Has come to life.
Terminator. No, I know. I love using all of the 80s analogy, robot movies for references and stuff with my new brand. But yeah, anyway, about a year ago, I was like, oh man, I was such a curmudgeon about AI, if we're honest. And then I, kind of was just on this long 2-hour drive to go do something. And I was listening to a podcast and I had one of those long drive epiphanies where I was like, oh, I am just kind of afraid of this new technology, right? It's change. I don't know how to use it. I don't know how to implement it. And if I'm worried about people using it in an unaligned or unauthentic way or anything like that, why not turn toward it, get curious about it, learn more about it, and then think, how can we make this work for us, right? So that's kind of how Authentic AI was born, from the values and all that stuff when it comes to my Feel Good Social brand. I'm kind of taking that to AI technology and just getting curious about how can we use this in a way that feels aligned with us? How can we keep it approachable for us? And how can we make it work for us and not the other way around, right? So that's kind of what I've been up to in the past year now. I've just been really trying to deep dive into AI technology and AI tools. And let me tell you, it's a lot, but it is really, really helpful. And, we're figuring it out. So that's why I'm here today.
It's so cool though, Kinsey, because it does really align with Feel Good Social in a way, because what I've always admired and really loved about you and your brand, it is truly finding that story, finding a way to tell your story and also serve your people. And with AI, that is kind of, like you said, it's kind of like the elephant in the room. How do you do that authentically when everyone's putting this is what I imagine. And so y'all, please bear with me. I imagine this machine, which it technically is, let's be real, this machine, and we're all plugged into it. and we're all sending our so-called information, and it's deciding, whether or not it's good, not good, relevant, and is a part of us all being kind of like chopped up, right? And I think there's a weird feeling when it comes to like AI when I think about it. But I know that there are people using it authentically in a way that really aligns with telling their story. And I also feel like your brand has kind of always been the place where people can go to be themselves. So I know that whatever you're going to be talking about AI, it's like it has to be related to that, like, because there is no other way that Kinsey can be. Like, it has to be authentic. So I loved when I saw you start like sprinkling things out there with this. And I was like, I can't wait to see what she does, because one of the things that I told everyone when AI started coming around, like with my clients and my community, is like, all these experts, quote unquote, about AI are newbies, just like everybody else. Okay. So they might be spending more time and hours on there, but they're still discovering how these tools work. So don't beat yourself up that you don't know all the things, because literally this is really new in the context of how we're using it. AI has been around way more than, Chat GPT. It has been around before that. But the way that the masses can now use it has definitely changed. So what has like you said, you were kind of like, I don't know if I want to be doing this, but if I'm going to do it, I got to make it work for us. What was the biggest sticky point for you in that? Like, I got to make this work for me, and then like the people I want to serve.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. And I just have to say too, like, definitely I have trouble calling myself an AI expert. I've been using AI nerd more so, just because that's what more aligns with me. But exactly, it's like anyone and everyone can feel like they're behind when it comes to this. And really the shift is remembering that, like, no, you're actually just like on the forefront in a way. Everyone is just learning about AI technology. I do not feel like an expert at all when it comes to a lot of stuff with AI technology. And I feel like, I do know somewhat, and I want to share, and I want to continue learning together. Right. Yeah. So yeah, for sure. If you're feeling behind, you're not, my friend. But when it comes to the sticky points with AI, oh, for sure, there were so many. I have felt all the things. I had to go through the ringer with myself when it came to like the mindset shifts of this stuff, because like I said, one of my main issues that I was having with it was the authenticity thing, for sure. Of course, isn't the internet fake enough as it is like the first thing that came to mind. And, I will say that as more people are using AI technology, I am seeing more and more recognizable AI written content, right? And
yes. I can spot it a mile away, people. I can spot it a mile away.
On my Authentic AI Instagram, I'm like putting on Instagram stories. Like, I got 3 emails that started with the subject line, "Unlock the power of" today, like, no, stop telling me to leverage things, not everything is crucial, like all these like different tropes that you can totally pick out now. Yeah. But it is kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, when it comes to our brand's authenticity, if it's important to you, then make it important to you. And in the age of AI, as more and more people are using these tools and it's becoming recognizable, like, your brand authenticity is more important than ever. And it's going to allow you to stand out even more so, right? So I love that. And also, ultimately, like, you are the gatekeeper of your brand, and you're allowed to use these tools in the way that aligns with you, and use them and make sure that everything it's sending your way is through the filter of your brand and feels authentic to you, right? So it's kind of a non-issue as long as you stay the head of your brand and you don't let AI run the show, which I don't think any of your people will.
Yeah, no. I mean, I saw on LinkedIn, because I've been dabbling in LinkedIn lately, but I saw on LinkedIn this post that was like, if you use AI to its like non-primed, like
finessed, non-branded up kind of version. It's okay in a pickle, like a literal pickle. It was like literally a pickle, but it's not anything you want to be using like all of the time, because you're so right. That's the first thing I thought with AI is like, as helpful and as useful as I believe it is and can be and will be, how much more important is the human factor needed? Like, we need to continue, like, that is the thing that people are going to crave more. To your point about all of those email subject lines, like, we are going to be so like, where's the people at? Because this ain't it. So I love that, being the taking to the point that we are the gatekeepers of that. We ultimately have the say in how we're going to tweak this to keep it human.
Yeah. I mean, and ultimately too, like I like to say that authentic AI takes a human first approach to AI. And what I have found is that when you bring your own brand opinions, ideas, personality to this software and allow it to help you with those, right? It's about amplifying your own expertise, amplifying your own brand, not replacing it, right? Not having it do the work for you, having it help you along the way, right? And so that's how you get the most unique responses out of it. That it really is how you can work with it and have this tool help you without being like, write me 10 blog posts, you know, like I was just writing a sales page for my new course yesterday. And I was like, this course is not for you if you are just like looking to churn out like as much content as possible and not care about like the quality or the alignment, right? Like, cause you know, there are people out there using AI for that. And honestly, it's not even just like an alignment value thing that's an issue with that. It is becoming like a strategy issue too, because Google is putting out all these updates where it's like shutting down websites with like kind of crappy content that isn't helpful, right? So it's like, no, like this is the most strategic way to do it. It's the most aligned way to do it. And it's going to be what makes you stand out online the most, for sure.
Yeah, such a good point. Yeah. So what is the biggest like challenge, if you will, for someone who's trying to incorporate AI? If you're like me, I have been playing with it. I have used it. Me and Chachi, I call it Chachi because the person that I learned AI from, she calls it Chachi. And I just think it's the cutest name ever to call ChatGPT. So when you hear me say Chachi, I'm talking about ChatGPT. Okay, people. But Chachi and I have conversations all of the time because I love using the app on my phone, because you can literally have a conversation and you can record things, which obviously you guys, hello, that's like my life, right? So it has made it easier for me to kind of frame Chachi to be more like how I want it to be when I'm asking it to create or finesse something that I've said with my style. But what is the hardest step of one at accepting that AI is okay? And then number two, how do you like start dipping your toe into it? Like, how do you start using it?
Yeah, I love that you call it Chachi. That is like so much easier to say than ChatGPT too. And like I have trained myself to be able to finally say ChatGPT correctly because I could not spit it the F out for the longest time. But okay, so let's think about this. So when it comes to just starting to dip your toes into using tools like ChatGPT and all that different stuff, I think firstly it can be like, you know, a little bit scary feeling to get started, or you don't know, you know, like how to use it or what to ask it. You know, you're worried about the tech and all that different stuff. And so there's just like a little bit of a hurdle getting over that first, like opening it up and typing something into the chat window, right? So if you haven't done that yet, that is where I would start. I would probably just open up ChatGPT, you know, just Google ChatGPT, it's free. And then just like introduce yourself, right? Just like if you don't know what to say, if you don't have a specific question to ask, then just introduce yourself, tell it a little bit about your brand, you know, and it will suggest ways that it can help you, which is kind of fun, right? And if you're over that initial hurdle, then the biggest challenge is the overwhelm of possibilities, I would say, all the different things that this can do, and or just like realizing like what it actually can do and what it can help with you with. I can't talk today. But, just like, it's so funny because at first it's like a little bit of a fear to start using it. And then after, it's a little bit of the overwhelm of, oh my gosh, there are so many things I can do with this. There are so many ideas it's throwing my way and all the different stuff. So I always like to tell people to, once you get over that initial hump, kind of start slow, take it one task, one tool, and one day at a time, and really think about the ways like, how can AI help me in my business? How can I incorporate this into the workflows that I already have established and that are working for myself and my business and all that different stuff? Because especially too, once you kind of get into that AI world, there's a lot of AI pushers out there. That's what I've been calling them lately, where they're like, you're not using AI for this yet? Oh, you're not having it write all of your emails for you and all of your captions? You're not using this tool or that tool or this? Oh, you have to try this tool. And I'm like, guys, no, this is like way too overwhelming, right? So like just remembering that like you don't have to use it for everything. And like you can slowly start to get curious about it, integrate it into your workflow. And then slowly, as you get more used to it, you'll be able to figure out the ways that it works for you more easily, right? So just take a deep breath and it's going to be okay. Also, having an organization system like a Google Doc open is great for that anxiety that you feel when you're like, there's so many good ideas here, but I just have to choose one, but I don't want to lose all these ideas. And then you can kind of turn into that deer in headlights where you're like, I don't know what to do. Just having a Google Doc to help you like organize your ideas is really great too.
Yeah. So that's a real thing, especially if you ever ask Chachi, what can I do with this? You're like, oh, I didn't have a clue. I only thought of 2 of those things on that list. I didn't think of any of the other ones. But speaking of what to do with Chachi, like what are some of the first things someone can use in order to give them some time back, in order to give them some creative juice, even if you will?
Oh, yeah. And again, there's so many different ways that you can use this tool. I'm going to list a few, not even close to all of them. And just take what feels like the most helpful for you today, right? But, I think that when it comes to tools like ChatGPT that are generative text tools and stuff, a lot of times the first thing they think about it is like copywriting, right? I'm going to have it write my emails for me. I'm going to have it write my captions for me, all that different stuff. And yeah, that's great, but that's actually not even my favorite way to use it necessarily. I really love to use it for ideation. I'm an Enneagram 7. I have so many shiny object ideas every day. And I'm like, will brain dump all of my different ideas into ChatGPT and be like, help me organize this into something that's like tangible. Help me outline this. I will go back and forth with it, asking it questions. I'll be like, oh, I really think that we need to add a part here that kind of has to do with something like this. Can you help me like solidify this idea? Or like, do you think that is a good idea? I'll ask it or I'll have it play like devil's advocate. Like, what are we missing here? Like, what would be the objections to this? I love using it for ideal customer profiles too. Getting into the head of my ideal customers is wonderful. I love using it for outlining meeting notes or podcast episodes or whatever it is, throwing transcripts from my meetings or my podcast into it and have it pull quotes for me, have it write show notes for me, have it, if it's a client meeting, have it write an action list for me or to-do list, for each of us, whatever that looks like. And of course, brainstorming content ideas, creating a content calendar, all that different stuff. It can also help you respond to client or to just emails in general, right? And this is actually something you could automate if you wanted to with Zapier or something. You could connect ChatGPT to your Gmail and have it automatically read every email and draft a response for you. And you could have it send the response. You could automate that.
I wouldn't do that
don't
part,
think
but
that is
snippety snap.
yeah. But a snippety snap. No, yeah, you can totally connect it with Zap to your Gmail and it'll just draft like response for you. And then all you have to do is go in, read the email, read the response, and like change whatever is needed to be changed and then hit send, right? Like, so that's a really cool automation thing that you could do. There's just so many things, girl.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of interesting because when I was talking with a client recently about podcasting and she was like, I want to start a podcast, but it's so hard. And I laughed. And I didn't mean to like laugh at her, but I was like, I started my podcast back in 2017. None of these AI tools didn't even exist. The editing portion, I mean, the script wasn't even on a blip. Squadcast wasn't even really there, I don't think. Like all of these tools that we use now to just take the content we're producing and then create stuff and then edit stuff. Like I have saved so much time in my process of just having some of these tools. So it's not just Chat GPT, right? There's so many other tools. There's this new tool that I'm using called Fathom for my meeting notes. Oh my God. It is the most amazing AI companion in your Zoom meetings ever. I don't have to send anything other a link because it already has outlined like takeaways and it directly connects it to like a specific point in the conversation that we were talking about. Like someone can click on it and it goes right to that timestamp versus like a human having to do that. Like the computer already did it, right? So there's just so many different ways. Like you said, there's different apps. It's not just It's not just Chachi. As much as we love Chachi, it's great. But there's other AI tools now that you can use for other form automations. And I didn't know that about Gmail. That's cool. There's something about that though that kind of freaks me out, which is I don't want Chachi reading all my emails. You know, like, I'm okay with you not doing that. Yeah. Like I have a person doing that at this point and I'm good with that, but I don't know about Chachi reading all of that. So like, that's another thing that's really of a concern for a lot of my clients. So privacy and like worrying about the security around, you know, can I trust this not to be like sent out to the universe, Meta, you know, how are you navigating that, or what have you found to be things to consider when that comes to that?
Yeah, definitely. I know that is such a legit concern for sure. And with all these AI tools popping up, you know, not even just ChatGPT, like you're saying, like all other tools too, they all have their own privacy policies, right? And it's super boring, but reading those or at least like Googling and or maybe asking ChatGPT if it's saying that, although it might not be up to date. Yeah. So, you know, but, you know, just like making sure that you understand the privacy policies of the tools you're using, right? Because, for example, ChatGPT is allowed to use anything that you input into the platform to train its future models. That doesn't mean, it's so funny to see all these things coming out because, you know, some people, I think it was Samsung was trying to sue OpenAI because they're like, part of our new code got out or so. I don't even know what happened. And like, you know, it doesn't mean that like anything you put in it there is always going to turn up like on Google, right, like word for word, exactly what you input. But the platform could learn from the knowledge that you put in there and possibly integrate it into results that it's sharing with other people, which then means that your ideas might not be considered your own in the future necessarily. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Although if you have been sharing, you know, if you are one of those OG people who has been just sharing this knowledge with people online, then you do have copyright, you know, protection, which is great. But, you know, all this stuff is just evolving as more tools are becoming more mainstream. But it is important to know that like what you put into ChatGPT can be used unless you do upgrade to the Teams version, which then that automatically does not use the information you input into it to train its future platforms. And I'm pretty sure there's a toggle on and toggle off for privacy stuff if you're using the pro version of ChatGPT too. So just to keep in mind of that. But also too, I think that it's important for us to think about allowing the people who we are working in tandem with to opt in to using AI tools as well, right? So whenever I'm using AI tools with client work and whatnot, I will make sure that I just ask them permission to be able to throw our meeting notes into ChatGPT, to be able to do whatever if I'm working with a offer launch client or something, and I really want to go back forth with ChatGPT to brainstorm and help create her copy and whatnot, then I will make sure that I ask her permission. And my people have never had an issue with that so far. If they have any hesitations, I know how to explain it to them and all that different stuff. But, it's not just ChatGPT. It's also, Fathom, for example. And I don't know as much about Fathom, but I have heard a couple of horror stories. It's not, whatever. But, of people having an AI meeting assistant, and then the settings just being automatically jumping into every meeting that you have and recording it, and having people get mad at them because they're like, I don't want this meeting recorded or put out there. Right. So
I will say about Fathom just real quick, there is a setting in the back end that before it pops into someone's screen, there's a way for you to say, hey, are you okay with this? Because hello, it's just kind of Zoom has that, do you want to be recorded? Thing that pops up when it's recorded. Fathom has the same exact tool of being hey, this is, such and such. And you have to opt in for the permission. But yeah, y'all ask permission. We are in these weird times with things. I feel with AI of being asking permission, it's to use these tools, especially in a client relationship, or letting them know it is a tool that you will be using. And if they have any issues with it, to let you know. So I totally agree with you, especially. And I would also add to if you're going to use AI, that I have found with I don't know, transcripts or something, even from a podcast or from a conversation, is to remove people's names, identifying locations and names and things like that from the text, that I have found is really helpful as well. But most of us just know at this point, let's be real. This is my own thoughts about AI, Kinsey. I mean, where do we think they got this stuff in the first place? Granted, are we hearing more things about privacy laws and all this kind of stuff and pixels and how those things, but literally for years, they have been listening to our conversations anyway. So it's kind of to me, it's this was just an inevitable, evolution of what we were already experiencing in a way anyway. And so at least now we know, and we can choose to opt in versus being in this weird verse of oh, is that happening? Or is that not happening? Or wait, I was on my phone. I was just talking to my friend and it popped up an ad of the exact thing I was just talking about. These things were already happening before we even are saying yes to them. So it's just something to put into context, I think, around privacy, quote unquote, when it comes to using AI.
I totally agree. I mean, it's pretty funny, when you kind of start using AI tools in general, you're oh, I've been using AI tools for years, or, oh, that's AI. This has been around. It's just now that it's becoming more mainstream, more understood, and the tools are more accessible to us to be able to use ourselves, right? So yeah, it's really cool. It's just being aware. I always just encourage people to understand how they feel about it themselves, right? And also, especially if you are working with clients and you're using any tools like this, just prep yourself for the conversations, your clients might have questions. So prep yourself with, this is why I'm using it. This is how I'm using it. And this is why it's not that scary, but you do have the opportunity to say no to using it if you want, whatever it needs to be. Prep yourself with that, just so that you're not caught off guard and scared. But these kinds of conversations are definitely going to become more and more normal for people as we're all working together, right?
And I also think if you pay for a tool, you have a little bit more privacy and connection with the tool that's using AI. So yes, there are a lot of free versions of things. My husband works in the tech world and he's always talking about like these forums that use certain ChatGPT for like code and all this stuff. Don't ask me because that's not my world, but like it's free source. Anybody can come in and go in and no one's paying for it. But when you put something behind a paywall, usually there's a little bit more protections, not just for you, but also for the people who are allowing you to use the tool. So that's something to consider too. I definitely pay for the upgraded Chachi just because I feel like, okay, there is some protection there. And you can also put like what I have found very useful. So this is like a little trick for you on. I think you mentioned this before, but like if you don't know what these privacy terms are and all these things, use the free version of Chachi and just copy and paste all that and say, what does this mean in like layman's terms? And then you'll be like, oh, then you kind of know like in within like 2 minutes versus you having to read the whole thing. Just something to put out there to save you some time.
They'll say that they've used that for like contracts and stuff too, like reading contracts. Like, is there anything I should be concerned about here or whatever? Yeah. And like, it really is nice for summarizing for sure.
So when it comes to time, like how much time does it take to start using these tools? And does it really save you time?
I love this question. It's so true because it can be a time suck just like everything else. Girl, I think that the reason I'm like loving approaching AI technology so much is because I definitely relate it in so many ways to Instagram too. You know what I mean? Like it can be a time suck and it doesn't have to be and whatnot, right? So like that, I think it's really important to definitely like, as you start to dip your toes into the world of AI and stuff, really be thinking about what do I need help with? Right. And like, how can I fit this into my workflow, my tasks in a way that makes sense and is going to save me time and not get sucked down, and or setting boundaries, right? Of like getting sucked down the rabbit hole that can become ChatGPT, a conversation with ChatGPT. So it's like, you know, really thinking about, I have it write copy for me for sure. And I especially think that I use it more to write copy for me because I am testing it so much for like my students and whatnot, right? And trying to figure out like different techniques and whatnot. But I'm fairly decent at writing copy and like writing my own captions and whatnot, right? So what I will do is like start writing something. And when I hit a like block, that's when I go to ChatGPT and I have it like help me work through the block, right? So I'll copy paste exactly what I've already written into ChatGPT. I'll give it context of this is what I'm going for, and this is where I want the post to end up, or like this is the point that I'm trying to make, right? Or whatever it is. And I'll have it finish the post for me. And or when I'm like, I want to say this thing, but like I don't know how to say it, you know, like all those little things that would have taken me freaking an hour before, right? To like find the perfect like way to say it and stuff. It is so much faster to work through with ChatGPT, right? And stuff. And so it's really, once you start using it, you don't have to have it write every single piece of copy for you, you know, remembering that it's a tool to help you in the process. And also, I think improving your critical thinking and decision-making skills is good too, right? Because again, it's like endless possibilities, endless options. You can have ChatGPT rewrite something for you 100 times, you know? Yeah. And so it's like just being able to really like think, okay, is it like, once again, progress over perfection or whatever it is, you know, like, is this good? Okay, we're doing this, we're taking it, we're rolling, we're keeping like the momentum going, right? So I think it definitely can save you time, and it's really, but it's also like keeping yourself in check, making sure that you're using it for what you need to use it for, making sure that there's different techniques you can use as well to get it to give you what, like as close to what you want from the get-go versus, I know that another time sucking situation with ChatGPT is like, pulling teeth, trying to get what you want out of ChatGPT. You go like try to use it for like a quick question, and all of a sudden 30 minutes later, you're like, it would have been faster if I would have just done this myself, right? So it's like also just kind of like improving your like smaller, easy prompting techniques to make sure that you're using it in a way that's going to be helpful for you instead of being like a pain in your to-do,
Like, so true. Oh my gosh, that's so true. Prompting is huge. I have found prompting is very important for my use of ChatGPT. But when we talk about time, and you're so right, it's like every tool, y'all. Like every tool. You can like, there's good versus evil in every tool. Like there's really is. And it's the same thing with Chachi. So like for the person who is like, all right, Kinsey, you've kind of sold me on the fact that I should at least start dipping my toe into this. Let's say that they are going to use this to help them with their emails, right? And I'm going to say emails just because y'all all know me and emails, pray, we work together. We work together, but pray no, y'all know me and emails are a love-hate relationship, okay? So I am not a writer, even though people keep telling me I'm good at writing. And I'm like, y'all are cute. Y'all just don't know. I just say what I'm saying. And then I ask Chachi to make it sound like me, but keep it clear and quick. But anyway, how can someone like start using it for like quote unquote emails? Like they want to start sending like nurturing emails. They want to start sending sales emails. How do they incorporate or create a foundation of steps to infuse their authentic brand into creating emails?
Oh, I love this too, because I literally kind of got sidetracked. I have like, I have my feel good social projects going on and my authentic AI project. I'm like, but it's kind of okay for my like shiny object brain in a way, so it works for me. It's fine. But I literally just did this the other day. I just got into the zone. I was working on an authentic AI project. All of a sudden I was like, oh wait, I have to go write this thing for Feel Good Social. And I hopped over there and I'm like in the zone. I'm using ChatGPT to write a new welcome sequence for this summit that I'm going to be a part of. And it's like branding rituals for fiction authors. Right. And I was like, shoot, I can't just like use my normal welcome sequence because it's really aimed at like entrepreneurs. I was like, I really need to kind of draft a whole new welcome sequence for these fiction authors who are kind of coming onto my list for branding that introduces them to Feel Good Social and then authentic AI, right? And all that different stuff. So I like go over to my ChatGPT and I had it write this whole email sequence with me. Like it didn't write it for me, it wrote it with me, right? But it literally took me like an hour for like 5 emails that I'm really proud of, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. So it totally is possible. But the reason I was able to do that is a few different things, right? The first thing that we need to always remember, especially if you are getting ChatGPT write copy for you, but really anything, if you're using it for anything in your business, is we need to train ChatGPT on our brand persona, right? So this is something that more people are talking about online in the AI space, but they weren't enough, especially when I first started dipping my toes into it, is people are just like dishing up all the prompts, like 100 prompts for whatever, and they're not like saying anything about tell ChatGPT who your brand is, tell ChatGPT who the heck you're speaking to, aka your ideal customers, and also tell ChatGPT what your brand's personality, persona, writing style, tone of voice is, right? And that's really where it's helpful for the copywriting part, because if you can train ChatGPT on your tone of voice and writing style, then it will dish up something that way more sounds like you from the get-go than like if you don't at all, right? So training on your brand is the very first step. And then I will say for the email writing thing and the email sequence, especially like that, or writing blogs, or even creating your social media content plan and stuff, I like to start big picture and slowly move in, or go in like a step-by-step way, right? So a lot of times people will go to ChatGPT and be like, write me a blog post or write me an email sequence. And they're expecting just like 7 emails, like all perfectly worded,
For
straight out of
random
ChatGPT.
person that it doesn't know anything about.
That it doesn't know anything about, and all different stuff. Yeah, exactly. So, for example, with my email sequence I just wrote for the fiction writers, it already knows Feel Good Social, what our values are, our brand opinions, what we offer in general. I've trained it on my brand voice, all that stuff, right? But then specifically for this email sequence, I went to it, I told it exactly how people are coming onto the list through like a brand rituals freebie, right? I'm telling it who these people are, fiction writers, It actually helped me create the freebie in the first place. So like it already knew all the details of that, right? But then I was like, let's write the welcome sequence for this. I think that I want email 1 to be drop off the sequence. Email 2 is going to be sharing more like basic resources. Email 3 is introducing myself and like sharing a personal story about branding. Email 4 is going to be this. Email 5 is going to be this. And I gave it the strategy. Then it helped me create an outline. And then we dove even deeper into individual emails and how we want those emails to go. And finally, we got to like the writing part of each individual email and like just breaking it down in those steps and like giving it the strategy and really giving it direction was super helpful. So like, don't just go to ChatGPT and be like, help me write an email, you have to give it context. You have to give it the strategy. You have to train it on your brand, right?
Yeah, that was so good. That little clip alone is really good for anyone who's like, how do I use this thing? That's huge. And you're right. There's only, it was you and one other person that I heard talking about how to infuse your brand into ChatGPT. And everybody else is like, oh, here's a prompt. I'm like, yeah, but you are missing the other piece, which is like the prompt for who and for what business, like, this is why we get these emails, and this is why Chachi still cannot, even with these sometimes like brand personas, still uses the really annoying things like unlock and transform and like the words that you're like trying to strip it can't because everyone keeps using the same prompts without giving it its brand and its person that it's like it's not getting specific enough. So that was really good. Really good tips there.
Oh, if you want me to go deeper into like making it, like training it on your brand voice, I totally can because that's one of those things too. I'm such a word nerd.
Yes,
like I have so been enjoying like getting ChatGPT to trying to get ChatGPT to sound like me. And guys, just so you know, for context, like I have probably only word for word copy pasted something from ChatGPT never. I've gotten really, really close to word for word, just like changing 2 words up maybe or something like 2 times, I think. Right. And still like the stuff that it dishes up for me is so similar to my voice and like what I want to say and how I want to say it because I've trained it that I still write things in like 5 minutes and like I make like 10 changes usually to the copy that ChatGPT throws my way and stuff. And or if it's just like deleting emojis because over emoji usage is another one. Or exactly swapping out words like unleash is another word it loves. Any unword.
It's so weird. It's like I this is a tangent. I'm sorry. I'm like, why do we talk like that in normal life? I really am like, I'm like, I don't think we actually like humans actually talk like that. I think I don't often like before ChatGPT, I don't often hear people saying unleash and let's transform. Like I hear more specific descriptive adjectives and verbs. And it's so interesting that Chachi has just kind of like taken those words and said, we're just going to pump them up into this little word that we all use. And I'm like, I am tired of seeing this.
I mean, of course, there's like so many different reasons and stuff, but especially if you are using ChatGPT, if you're, one of those popular things is to be like, act as a marketing strategist, be a, copywriting expert. And those are words that copywriters use, and that's marketing language, right? So like there's that. And also just like, I mean, there are buzzwords that just like loves to use its power language, right? And it is kind of convincing sometimes, you know, like a lot of times people use that when it's action language. It's like how ChatGPT is being trained. It's the little nuances in the way that we're asking it to do things and it tries to please us and it tries to give us what we want. But exactly, I'm like, so I've been getting crucial a lot lately in my ChatGPT. Like everything is freaking crucial. I'm like, I say important. And I say important without the T because I'm from Indiana. You know, like, no, but like, yeah, it's like having those little things. It's like, I always reread through things. I'm like, is this something I would say every day? Is this how humans talk? No. Do they say important instead of crucial? Yes. Do they say, you know, I'm trying to think. I have like all these little go-to words in my pocket that I'll just like swap out if ChatGPT uses it. Because I think you said this earlier, even if we ask it not to use specific words, that's one of the hardest things to really get ChatGPT to like not do, you know. I will yell at it too. I'll be like, I told you not to use emojis, and it'll be like, I apologize, you know. Here you go. Like, I'm like, whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think there's something too I want to bring to this. It's like, it's a new tool. Have fun with it. You know, yes, get training around how you can best use it, become very well versed in it and knowing how to use it. She'll share with you guys, she has lots of tools that can help you, but also like, it doesn't have to be this thing that's out to get you either. Like, I think that's important to say. Earlier in the conversation, I was talking about like how back in the day, digital photography was like shunned upon for a while. And now we have such a beautiful world of digital art in different ways. And even now, like I have a client right now who has started using film photography and digital, and it's like creating these beautiful, like images of the two worlds kind of coming together. And I think there's room for you to have fun and play instead of just being like so worried that it's like out to get you or that it's going to take your time, or like it's a new tool. And I think we have to bring our curiosity and creativity to using new tools, especially if you're a business owner, especially for all my chronic illness warriors, if you are trying to save some spoons, this is a tool that can help you. It's not a tool that's not like, it's not foolproof. There's nothing that's foolproof, right? There's nothing that's foolproof, but it's definitely helpful. So to kind of get us around to a wrapping point, what are the 3 things you think a business owner needs to think about when they start using AI for automation, marketing, and just the like personal use? Because I use it a lot for personal things like researching doctors and all this other kind of stuff. But like, what are some things that you would say are your top 3 things when thinking about AI?
Oh, yeah. Oh, the top 3. Okay. I know. Well, I think we hit on like quite a few of them, you know, like I might end up just sharing a few more than 3, but I'll try to keep it to 3. But you know, firstly, bringing your own brand to it. It's up to you to tell it who your brand is and who it's speaking to, and also bring your own ideas to it, your own expertise to it. Like I said, like I think that one of the best ways to use it, to get it to help me do my work more quickly, I gave it the email welcome sequence strategy. I wasn't like, what is an email welcome sequence strategy for this? I was like, here is how I want the sequence to go. Or like, if I wouldn't have known what email I wanted for email 4 in the welcome sequence, I might have asked it that, but I didn't just expect it to give me everything. I kind of like guide it along and work with it. And same thing with like my brand voice and all those different things. So bringing yourself to these and using them as an assistant tool is always great. Remembering that the golden rules of ChatGPT, which is that it is not always correct. Firstly, it's not always factual, and it's not always correct for your brand, right? So just remembering, and it can be very convincing. So just remembering to always maintain autonomy over the output, remembering this is a conversation. This isn't a perfect tool. And I love what you just said too, because we do tend to think of this as just another tool. Like you go to Google and you Google something and you're pretty much going to get the same search results like every time you Google, right? Unless like if you Google the same thing within 5 minutes each other, the same things are going to pop up. That is not the same for ChatGPT. That's why it is called AI, artificial intelligence. It has a mind of its own. And it's really funny if you kind of start thinking of it as a bumbly assistant sometimes or whatever it is, like then you can kind of like find more humor in the times when it doesn't necessarily give you what you want, right? Like, and it's hilarious. I've been on so many ChatGPT trainings. I've trained on ChatGPT myself, and I swear every time I like attend a ChatGPT training by multiple different people, there's something that pops up that the people are like, oh, this didn't happen when I used this prompt before, right? Or like, so, and we all just kind of laugh about it because it's ChatGPT. Yeah. Oh, ChatGPT, And so just remembering that for sure. And then, just like remembering that like you're allowed to use AI in whatever way you want to use it for you. You don't have to be using it for all the things. You can use it to automate things. You can use it to write things for you. But like at the same time, if you don't, like that's okay. If you start slow, that's okay, because it's just like anything else. It can be easy to get sucked into, now I have to learn all these things. Like there's so much, like it can be so much more overwhelming. And especially when people are telling you, you have to do this, you have to do that. I ran into that when I went to a podcast conference. It was like, everybody was being like, you're not doing video podcasting. I'm like, shut up. Like, no, it doesn't work
you're
for me.
You're not alone.
And
you're not alone. I was the same person. I'm just getting into like having video as a part of being like, for the marketing of the podcast. I still have no plans to start a video podcast. I have no plans for it. None.
Thank you. Okay, here's my thing. Okay, this is what I tell everyone. I'm like, okay, I started Authentic AI podcast thinking, yep, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to just buckle down. I'm going to do video podcasting. And guess what? I did it. I posted episode number 1. And I didn't post another episode for like a month and a half because I couldn't get the freaking videos done. So guess what? Instead, I'm just doing audio. That's manageable for me. I can put it out there, and I have gained so many students. I have gained so many new audience members to my email list. I have like made so many new connections because I'm showing up in the way that I am capable of.
you know, girl, that's a whole nother episode about doing what works for you so you can show up and actually do the thing. We already know, but we're not going down that road today. Thank you so much for coming and keeping it real about keeping AI authentic and real for you. What are some tools that you have? I will vouch for Kinsey's tools again right now. One of the points that she said are the 3 things about approaching it with you. If you're working with a coach or a mentor or a consultant, 9 times out of 10, they are giving you the strategy you need in order to do this thing. And instead of using it like, oh, now I want to create a new one, use the strategy that your coach or your mentor gave you and give it to Chachi to help you create this thing. Like you don't have to go and try to reinvent the wheel and like beat your coach. Like that don't make any sense, people. So like what are like some of my clients have been using a lot of your course that you have and some other things I think they have been using, like some cheat checklist sheets. I don't remember, but they've been telling me they've been using it to like formulate the strategy that I've given them in their business with Chachi in order to create some of the content and things like that, our ideas. So tell us a little bit about some of the things you've got.
Oh, totally. I'm so excited to hear that your clients are using my stuff. I love it. So yeah. Okay. So free stuff. We have the podcast, which I interview experts and also just like dish up practical, approachable tips for sure. So Authentic AI podcast, just Google that on your podcast platforms. I also just released, I'm so excited about this. I'm calling it the Authentic AI Tech toolkit because I know tech overwhelm is real when it comes to AI tools and like so many out there. How do you choose what's right for you? And like also, wait, what was that one tool that one person told me about? Like, I don't know. So I created a free, just like online digital hub, a library where I'm just like adding all of the recommended tools that I hear from podcast guests in our Authentic AI community. So it's all tools that have been tried and tested for various things, right? So if you're just interested in what tools should I choose, then that's a really great resource. And also my brand persona for ChatGPT mini course, I think is what a lot of your clients have been using. So that really helps. It's an hour-long-ish course, and I give you all the prompts and step-by-step stuff you need to train ChatGPT on your brand persona. Right. So we walk you through the process of telling ChatGPT who your brand is, what you care about, who you're speaking to, who your ideal customers are. And then there's 2 methods for training ChatGPT to sound like you and on your brand voice to write copy for you and whatnot. And so I share both of those in the mini course too, depending on which one works for you. So yeah, those are probably the best resources. I'm about to launch a content made easy with ChatGPT course, which I'm super excited about as well. And that's taking it a little bit next level with content creation with ChatGPT. So if anyone's interested in that, that should be coming soon. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Yes. Like I said, check it out. We'll have the links to all of the stuff in the show notes, and you can connect with Kinsey there and learn all about both brands, Authentic AI and Feel Good Social. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. This was fun, and it was lovely to catch up with you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, lady. I've so enjoyed it.
That's a wrap for this episode of Business with Chronic Illness. If you would like to start and grow an online coaching business with me, head to the show notes to click a link to book a sales call and learn how to make money with chronic illness. You can also check out our website at www.craftedtothrive.com for this episode's show notes and join our email list to get exclusive content where I coach you on how to chronically grow a profitable business while living with chronic illness. Until next time, remember, yes, you are crafted to thrive.